Good week, Shalom Aleichem, Shvua Tov, all viewers to TorahAnytime.com. We got a thunderbolt to teach you this week. As you know, we're in the month of Adar. Meshenichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha. When the enter Adar, you increase Simcha. And we have 2 Adars this year, because it's a Shana Me'uberes, a pregnant year. Means it's carrying an extra month. We have 384 days instead of 354. So we have Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni. The first day of Adar Rishon, which was January 5th, there was a revolution in the world that started. Do I have to tell you about the explosion in the Middle East, what's going on now? Mishenichnas Adar, when Adar comes in, Marvin B'Simcha is going to turn out very good. And after the month of Adar, what is that? Nisan. And in Nisan Nigalu, in Nisan we were redeemed. And Chazal tell us, the Nisan Asidin Ligaol, we will be redeemed in Nisan. That means to say, Mashiach. Now, before we get into the Haftorah Vayakel, and to learn a little bit about Megillas Esther, I have the thunderbolt to tell you about what's going on in the Middle East. You know, in the Middle East, is that a revolution hasn't happened since the Muslims came into power. When did Islam start? If you know history, it's about 628. How many years is it from 628 till today? 1,338 years. So what's the thunderbolt? This year is the thunderbolt. The end of Malchus Yishmael probably is this year, 2011, or what we call 5771. Tov Shin Ayin Aleph. How do we know? Because in the davening every morning before Baruch Shamar, you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. You say a paragraph and another paragraph, and on the bottom of the second paragraph, it says, "V'kayem lanu," and God will fulfill for us, Hashem Elokeinu, our God, Masha Kosu, what's written, Bo'esahi, at that time, it means the coming of Mashiach, Avi Eschem, I will bring you home, or bring you into high status. Ube'esahi kaptiechem, I will gather you. Ki etein eschem, I will give to you l'shem, a name, or l'tehillah, for a praise. V'chol amei aretz, in the presence of all the nations of the world. V'shuv yeshu sechem, when I return your captives. That little statement and that paragraph in the Siddur every morning, right after Kriyat Shema in the morning, the first Kriyat Shema, it says the word Eschem, Eschem, Eschem 3 times. That's redundant. Whenever something is repeated 3 times, it's a reason. Well, Esahi at that time, when Mashiach comes. I'm not predicting anything. What do I know? I'm just guessing. Maybe this could be it. But Esahi, at the time of Mashiach, it says in the davening, Avi Eschem, I will bring you. At that time, Kapsi, I will gather you. Ki etein Eschem, I'll give you a name of praise in the eyes of the nation. Eschem, 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 3 times. You know, Eschem is 461, and 3 times 461 is 1383. 1383 years ago is when Islam started, because they started in the year 628, and 1383 and 628 is today, 2011. Or in the Jewish calendar, 628, which is almost 1400 years ago when Islam started, that was the year 4388. Dalit Shin Pei Ches. Dalit Shin Pei Ches with 628 comes out to this year, 5771. What do you say about that? Could it be? Well, we just saw since Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon, January 5th, that a revolution started in the Middle East. In Tunisia it started, the Jasmine Revolution, and a few days ago, the dictator there left. His name is Mohammed Ghanouchi. Then came Egypt. 18 days, Mubarak is out. Now it's Iran. The last couple of days, thousands of people are demonstrating. Iran is Persia. That's what the Megillah Esther is talking about. Achashverosh in the land of Poras, Persia. That's Iran. And in Libya, North Africa, Gaddafi is on his way out because the rebels have the whole country except Libya. And Libya, the soldiers and officers already have defected against Gaddafi, and there's a few 20, 30,000 loyal pro-Gaddafi. He won't last more than a few more days. And what about Yemen? They're demonstrating there. And what about Morocco? And what about Bahrain? And what about in Saudi Arabia last few days? It's like a domino effect. It started with Shenichnas Ador Marbim Simcha. And after the Simcha comes Nisan. Nisan Nigalu, Nisan Asid and Ligal. Now, I'm not I don't know anything. I'm suggesting maybe this is something that we should consider. Egypt, Iran, Libya, Yemen, Morocco, Bahrain, Tunisia, Saudi Arabia, and even they're protesting in Beijing, China, which is communism. Hashem put in the hearts of man at a certain period, this time, Baisahi, to rebel against dictatorship and ask for freedom, because Mashiach is ultimate freedom of mankind. Isn't that interesting? This year, 2011, which is 5771, and that's Eschem 3 times, 1388, after the birth of Islam, which was 628, and that's this year. Who knows? We don't know anything, but it's an interesting idea. What's happening now in the Mideast, and the Chazal say at the end of time, the Goyim will kill each other, and we will watch. That's what they're doing. They're killing each other. They're killing each other in China, yes, and in Morocco, and in Yemen, and in Iran for sure, and in Libya for sure, and in Egypt, they killed each other. Maybe this is the moment. This is the time we're waiting for. Boy, Sahi, at that time. Could be. Couldn't it? All right, that takes care of this little bombshell. Let's wait 2.5, 3 weeks till Purim. Purim is the day when they wanted to wipe out all Jews in 127 lands in one day. When the day came, the 13th of Adar, they got killed, and not one Jew got killed. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? The gallows that Haman made for Mordechai, he hung in it the next night. Because when he came to Achashverosh with his, which we're going to learn in the Megillah Esther, with his plan to hang Mordechai, that was the night before Pesach. So Esther said a Jew should fast for the next 3 days. No, that he was hung in that. 11 months later, the Jews were about to be hung, to be killed. 11 months later, she made a party for Achashverosh. No, I'm sorry. He was killed 11 months before the war against the Bnei Agag. He was an Agagi, Haman of Agagi. So he was hung, and 11 months later they killed his 10 sons. So they hung 11 people on a pole. And his body didn't disintegrate for 11 months. And then the war started 11 months later. On 13th of Adar, they killed all in 2 days, Shushan and all around Shushan. And they killed, I don't know, it says in Megillah, 175,000 Goyim, and no Jews got killed. And Achashverosh lived 1 more year, and then Mordechai became the prime minister of Persia. And Esther became the queen. Isn't that interesting? Persia, a Jewish king and a queen. They were so holy, these people, Mordechai and Esther, they wrote a Megillah with Ruach HaKodesh, and it's included in 24 books of Tanakh. So we have to talk about the Haftorah of Vayakel. So let's say one thing, and then we'll go to the Megillah. It says in the Vayakel Haftorah that Shlomo took a man, Hiram, from Tyre, in Hebrew it's called Sur, and helped him build the base of Mikdash. Who is this Hiram? Hiram, same man. His father was from Naphtali, and his mother was from Dan. His mother was from Dan. He was extremely talented man who knew how to work with metals and woods and fabrics. And why we read this Haftorah is because the Parsha talks about Betzalel from the Shevet of Yehuda with his assistant, director of operations, called Ahaliel ben Achisoma from Dan. So Betzale Betzale ben Uri Mechur comes Betzale ben Uri Mechur Lemate Yehuda, and Shlomo came from Yehuda. Aliyah came from Dan. Hundreds of years later, this Chiram also, his mother came from Dan, not the father, the mother. So Yehuda Dan. Isn't that interesting? So that takes care of the Haftorah of Vayakel. Next week, Bakudei, we have a triple header. It's going to be Shabbos Mavarachim Rosh Chodesh Adar, which is Sunday, Monday. That means it starts Motzi Shabbos. That means in 2 weeks from now, Purim is Motzi Shabbos. And next week we're going to read, we have a triple header, Pekudei, and Pasha Shkolim, and Mavarachim HaChodesh. And what's the Chodesh? Next day, Machar Chodesh. We read next week the Torah of Machar Chodesh. You would think we read Machar Chodesh, but we read Shkolim, Pasha Shkolim. And if next week Rosh Chodesh would not be on Sunday, but it would be Shabbos, you take out 3 Sifrei Torahs. That happens very seldom. It could happen 4 times a year. It must happen once a year. Once a year, every year, always, you take out 3 Sifrei Torahs. That's called Simchas Torah. And in Israel, it's 1 day. We have it 2 days. Shemini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. We take out 3 Sifrei Torahs on Simchas Torah, not Shemini Atzeres. They have 1 day, combined it, they take out 3 Sifrei Torahs. One is Chassan Torah, who finishes Zos HaBrocha. One is Chassan Bereshis, who starts Bereshis. And one is the Maftir of the Korban of Shemini Atzeres. 3 Sifrei Torahs. If it would be on Shabbos, but Rosh Chodesh is not Shabbos, it's Sunday. There's 4 times a year you could take out 3 Sifrei Torahs. That's Pasha Shkolim and Rosh Chodesh and the Shabbos. And if that happens, then 4 weeks later, Pashas HaChodesh and Pashas Rosh Chodesh and Pashas whatever the week is then, that's also 3 Sifrei Torahs. And it could come out Chanukah. Chanukah is always, middle of Chanukah there's Rosh Chodesh, because Chanukah is on the 25th day of Kislev, and it's 8 days, so in Chanukah got to be Rosh Chodesh. So if that Rosh Chodesh comes out on Shabbos and Chanukah, then you have 3 Sifrei Torahs too. But that doesn't have to happen, these 3, but one has to happen. That's Simchas Torah. Once a year you take out 3 Sifrei Torahs. You could take 4 times a year. So, let us talk now a little bit about the Megillas Esther. There are 5 Megillas. And to read Megillas Esther is one of the 7 mitzvahs d'Rabbanan. There's 7 mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, 2 readings, 2 lightings, 2 doings. That's 6, and there's 1 at the end. 2 readings. You must read Megillas Esther. The other 5, you don't have to read from a cloth, and you don't make a bracha. You just start reading them. But Megillas Esther, you make up 3 brachas. You read it from a cloth, and it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, 1 of the 7 mitzvahs. The other reading is the reading of Hallel on Yom Tov and Chanukah. That's 1 of the 7 mitzvahs d'Rabbanan. Hallel on Rosh Chodesh is not a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's a minhag. That's why Sfadim don't make a bracha on it. And we do. But you don't make a bracha on minhagim. So the answer is, it's a minig Yisrael to make a bichas hashevach. It's a minig Yisrael to make this bracha of praise to God. Like it's a minig Yisrael to bless the new moon. Or to bless a rainbow. Or to make a bracha on a tornado. Or an ocean. Or a giant, or a midget, or any strange new blossoms in the spring. It's a mitzvah to make a bichas hashevach to praise God. So there's a minhag, not a mitzvah, a minhag to make bichas hashevach on Rosh Chodesh Hallel, because 1 of the 7 mitzvahs d'Rabbanan is to say Hallel on Chanukah. And Yom Tov, but Rosh Chodesh is a minhag. But you're not you don't say a bracha al minhaga ein barachinam. Answer is, it's a bichas, it's a minhag to say bichas hashevach. Like they told you got to make a minhag going up on a rainbow, or on a midget, or in the ocean you see the first time in 30 days, or an elephant the first time in 30 days, or in the Shulchan Aruch said the first time you see a black man in your life, you got to make a bracha. Anything strange, a waterfall. So it's a minhag Yisrael to make Bechaz HaShevach. So it's a minhag Yisrael to make Bechaz HaShevach on every month Rosh Chodesh. You know why? Because 1 month in the beginning of Jewish history, they went out of Mitzrayim on the month of Nisan, and Hashem told Moshe, "Chodesh hazeh lechem Rosh Chodoshim." This is the head of all the months, and that was the month of Agula, Nisan. So therefore, every single month we remember that our months start not in Tishrei but in Nisan. We have a different counting system, so it's a minhag to make Birchas HaShevach, to remember that one of the 12 months God told us, prepare, you're going out of Mitzrayim now. So every month we do that as a minhag. I mean, make a brachas Birchas HaShevach. The minhag to make Birchas HaShevach, like there's a minhag to make Birchas on the Havdalah candle, Motzi Shabbos. It's a minhag to make that Birchas HaShevach. And there's a minhag to smell the Besamim. Because Havdalah, you don't need Besamim and the light. All you need is a kos, Hamavda B'Kodesh L'Chol. Period. That's it. That they're smelling of the Besamim, and this is a minhag to make Birchas HaShevach. Anyhow, that takes care of that. So there's 7 mitzvahs Rabbanan. One is reading the Megillah, only Esther, not the others, and saying Hallel on Chanukah and Yom Tov. Then there's 2 lightings, to light Chanukah lights, and to light Friday night. Candles, oil. Adds 4. Then there's a minhag to wash your hands for bread, and then there's a minhag to make brachas. All the brachas, 175 brachas, there's a minhag. Then there's not a minhag, there's 7 mitzvahs. The mitzvah of reading the Megillah Esther, the reading of Hallel on Chanukah and Yom Tov. There's a mitzvah of lighting Shabbos lights and Chanukah lights, that's 4. Minhag to wash your hands and to make brachas, that's 6. And then there's a mitzvah, there's all mitzvahs, to make Erev Tavshilin. When Yom Tov comes out on Friday, or Thursday, Friday, you prepare for Shabbos. So that's the 7 mitzvahs to Rabbanim. So now we have a mitzvah of reading the Megillah, which is one of the 7 mitzvahs to Rabbanim. I want to ask you a question about that. Since it's a mitzvah to read, since it's a mitzvah to Rabbanim to read the Megillah Esther, that's the only one you have to read out of a klap and make the brachas in front of it. Eicha, you don't make any brachas. Shir Shirm, you don't make any brachas. Rus, you don't make any brachas. Koheles, you don't make any brachas. The Vilna Gaon says you make a bracha and you read them out of all of them out of the Megillah, but that's a Das Yachid. That's not the Shulchan Aruch. So let me ask you a question. Since it's a mitzvah, one of the 7 mitzvahs d'Rabbanan to read Megillah Esther, and to read on Shabbos the Torah is only a minhag. So which is more important? One of the 7 mitzvahs, the Rabbanan, reading the Megillah Esther, or reading on Shabbos and Torah on Yom Tov. Well, reading on Shabbos and Yom Tov and Monday and Thursday and Shabbos afternoon and all minhagim. There's no mitzvah at all ever to read from the Sefer Torah, except in a few weeks from now. Every year we read Pasha Zocha, 3 Pesukim. That's it. That's it. The rest you don't have to read. It's a minhag. Now let me ask you something. Do you really believe that reading the Megillah, which is one of the 7 mitzvahs D'Rabbanan, is greater than reading the Torah? Looks like it. That's a minhag D'Rabbanan. There's only a minhag. The problem with that, reading the Sefer Torah on Shabbos, Moshe and Ezra, they did it Shabbos afternoon, Monday and Thursday. That is a halacha Moshe Sinai. Halacha Moshe Sinai is like a deraisa. So it's not written in the Torah though that you have to read anything from the Torah except Pasha Zochar. It says to Adam, Moshe told Yeshua, write this down in the Sefer about Amalek. Write it down. Zos ba Sefer. So reading those 3 Pesukim once a year, Zachar Asher Aseh L'cha Amalek, which we're going to read in a few weeks, that's the deraisa. Those 3 Pesukim. That's it. The rest is a minhag. But really, you mean reading a Megillah Esther, which is one of the 7 mitzvahs D'Rabbanan, is higher than reading Kriyas Shabbat Torah every Shabbos? Looks like that's a mitzvah, and this is only a minhag. But a minhag that Moshe did is he got it from Sinai, not written anywhere in the Torah. Maybe that makes it like a deraisa. So maybe it's not. It is more important than Megillah. This is a question we'll leave open. Now we get to the Megillah Esther. Megillah Esther has 167 Pesukim. Yes, so. When the Purim story started, that was the beginning of the second bias. Chanukah happened 200 years after the second bias was in operation already. The Chanukah was in the beginning of the second Bais. After the 70 years of Golas bubble was over. The first Bais was destroyed, there were 70 years, then they started to build the second Beis HaMikdash. Ezra built it. And Mordechai and Esther were still living. Now, they came after the story of Purim, which was right before this building of the second Beis HaMikdash. They came to the Chacham and says, this was written by Ruach HaKodesh, put us into the Tanakh. They said, closed. Only 23 books allowed, and that's it, we can't let you in. That's it, Tanakh is 23 books. They said, but, you know, we have a Masorah, Tanakh is 24. I know, but we don't know what the 24th book is, and Nevuah is over. Megillah Esther was written by Ruach HaKodesh, which is less than Nevuah. No, we can't allow your book, Megillah Esther, to come into Tanakh. Well, there's supposed to be 5 Megillahs. I know, but that's it. So Esther, she wrote the Megillah, it says, Vatichtav Esther Hamalko Bas Avichayil. And then Mordechai, HaYehudi, Esther says, this letter, this was a letter, the Megillah was a letter to all the countries, 127 countries, that the Jews can stand up for their lives and bear arms. And that's called Igeres Mordechai. That was sent out 70 days later after Igeres Haman, who said, kill all the Jews on the 13th day of Adar, 11 months from now. So, Mordechai Esther said, I have a proof that God will approve that you should take this book into Tanakh and make it the 24th book. Because the written law has 24 books. What's the proof? He said, there's 2 times, Haman was an Agogi. Haman ha-Agogi, Agogi was Agag. Agag came from Esau. Esau's grandson was Amalek. Esau Alif was Amalek. Amalek was, his great-grandson was Haman. So, Haman ha-Agogi, who was from Agag, the king, and then Shaul let the king live one night. Agag, he came from Amalek. It says in the Torah 2 times, Zachar, remember what Amalek did to you? And then it says, early in the Torah, in Shalach, Vayavo Amalek. Amalek came and attacked the Jews in the Midbar. And at the end of the Torah, it says, Zachar, remember what Amalek did to you. These 2 sections have exactly 167 words. And the entire Megillah is 167 Pesukim. So the Chachamim heard that. They said, this has been a Shemayim, a sign. You're in Tanakh. And that was the last book in Tanakh, number 24. That's called Megillah Esther. Interesting, isn't it? Before we start learning, let me tell you something. Mordechai and Haman were both at this time 95 years old. Haman worked for Mordechai as a barber, because earlier years they both were in the army with Achashverosh or with Nebuchadnezzar or somebody, and Mordechai was the boss of Haman. Haman was his slave, and he saved him or something. He had to work for Mordechai, and he was a barber. Mordechai and Haman were 95 years old. B'nai Haman, how many were there? 30. Some say 210 children. He had many wives. These people had many wives, you know. Esther was about 60 years old during this story. And it came out that, the Gemara says, B'nai Haman, the great-great-grandchildren of Haman, were taught Torah in Yerushalayim. Now, how is that possible? Haman is Amalek. You're not allowed to accept a ger from Amalek. From every nation in the world, you can accept a ger, but you can't accept a ger from Amalek. Amalek is the antithesis of Israel. They want to destroy Israel. How could it be that B'nai Bana, you learn in the Gemara, it says that. B'nai Bana shel Haman, limdu Torah limdu Torah, where? Yerushalayim. How could it be you can't become a ger if you're not Amaleki? So some say they didn't tell anybody that they came from Haman. They were Gerim, Gerurim, low-class Gerim. They had Mila, Tvila, everything, and kept the Torah, but they weren't official through Bezdin. There was no Bezdin doing this. Some say no. The Amaleki, Haman's daughter, children, some of them survived. They according to some, he had 30 or 210. Some of them married women who had children, who the girls married men who were not from Amalek, and their children were not directly from Amalek. So they taught Torah in Yerushalayim. And let's go and start and God's name is not, by the way, in this Megillah at all. The only book in the Torah where God's name is not in. From the 24 books, Hashem is not naming in. His name is not here. There's only 4 times God's name is hinted. When it says Ha-Melech, the king, that's Hashem. When it says Ha-Melech Achashverosh, that's him, Achashverosh. But Ha-Melech means God. Interesting. Why doesn't God's name in here? Because Esther, after Achashverosh died, she was the queen. Vashti was killed. And Haman was dead. So Mordechai was the prime minister. Mordechai was the prime minister. And Esther was the queen. And they sent this story to 127 lands, from Hodu at Kush, from India to Africa. And he owns most of the world, Achashverosh, because he was actually, Vashti came from Nebuchadnezzar. He was not a blue blood, he was a commoner, married Vashti. And so they sent this to all the other nations, and other nations might have said, see what our God did, they killed it. They all hated Haman, by the way. Just like in Iran today. 85% of the people in Iran hate Ahmadinejad, you know that? So they hated Haman, they were very glad he was gone there. He said, sure, look, our God did it. Our God killed him. So that's why he didn't want to use Hashem's name there, because they will say that their God did it, not Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So you don't use Hashem's name. That's why God's name is not in Megillus Esther. Isn't that, and not in Megillus Esther. Isn't that interesting? There's other books where Hashem's name is not used. All right, in Shir Hashirim, Shlomo could be Hashem's name, or Shlomo HaMelech. Shir Hashirim, Asher Shlomo. And Moshe's name is not used in one parsha, Ato Tetzaveh. Aaron's name is not used in one parsha, Vayikro. Now, we told you about these things. If you listen to these shiurim on Torah anytime, for a year or so, or you go to my shiurim on telephone called Torah, Kol Haloshon is called. I have 1,765 shiurim. They just changed the number this week. I want you to know. Brand new number. All those people having trouble with calling Kol Haloshon and get that for the last 4 weeks, all circuits are busy now. The Kol Haloshon people in Bnei Barak switched from a little carrier to a big carrier called Cellcom. They gave them 120 open lines. Now you call them, you get immediately into Kol Haloshon. You want to know the number? You better, everyone who listens to this, better tell 10 friends that the number now is changed. It's in America, 1-718-535-0520. 1-718-535-0520. That is for the, and as soon as you get there, of course, how are you going to find me out of 250 Magidei Shir? You have to press my code number, 11101. 11101. There's about 38 people doing Chumash, that's what I do. There's about 90 people doing Gemara, Yiddish and French and Portuguese and Spanish and Farsi and Russian. There's 8 languages going on there. That's why it's called Haloshon. That's why it's called all languages. Everything you want. Dikduk, Chasidus, women's programs, everything you want. Let's go to the Megillus Esther. It's called Megillus Purim too, by the way. And by the way, here's a picture of the tomb of Mordechai and Esther. In what city? In Hamadan. Shushan. Hamadan. Let's take a look here. It was in the days of Achashverosh. What kind of name is that? Ach, a brother of the Rosh, of the big man. He was related, not directly, he was related to Nebuchadnezzar, which means his wife came from that family. Ach, he was a brother. He was a similar wicked man, like the Rosh, the big person of Persia, which is Iran, right? That was Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? He was Achashverosh HaMolech, who ruled by Hodu Bat Kush, from India to Africa. Sheva Esra Me'ah Medina, 127 lands. Yom Mahem, in those days, Kesheves, when he was real situated well, HaMelech Achashverosh, Al Kisa Malchusa, on this seat of authority, Sheva Shushan Abira, B'Shanas, in that year, B'Shana Shalosh L'Mochon, the 3rd year of his kingdom, also Mishnah made a grand Persian orgy. Also Mishnah Chol Sorav, for all of his officers, Abodavas servants, Chel, the military of Paras, Persia, Umodai, which is next to Persia, Hapartimim, the governors, the Sore and the officers, Hamadinos of the countries, the governors, Lafana Baharos as Osher, to show off the wealth, Kavod Malchus of his honor, he was a very wealthy man, dictator, yeah, Ves Yakar, Tiferes Gudosa, and the beauty of the gorgeous greatness, which means he stole and wore the garments of the Kohen Gadol. Yomim Rabin, many days, Shmonim Umaas Yom, 180 days plus Persian orgy. You know how many months that is? That's 6 months. Now, in the words, by Yomim Haim Kit Shevis, it's exactly 180. By Yomim Haim, do the Gematria, by Yomim Haim, in those days, Kit. Their letters are continuous. But when the Torah was given, or Nevuah, it's given in continuous letters, the Navi breaks it up into words. If you add that up, it's 180. You're going to come out with 171. So you add the letters. How many letters there are? Bayom Haim K is 9 letters. What's 180? That's exactly how long the party was. 180 days, 6 months, and they were. After 180 days, they were drunk and plastered and drunk. And can you imagine what kind of life they were living there? Ubeloas Hayom Ha'ilo, and these days were finished, 6 months of partying. Also, Hamelech L'chol Am Hamnimsam B'Shushan Habira, he made a private party for the locals of Shushan Habira. Bira means capital. Lemegadol V'Akotin, big and small, rich and poor. Mishneh Shivas Yom, a 7-day party. The Chatzar in the garden, Ginas of the Chatzar means flower garden, Gina means a vegetable garden, Bisan, an orchard, Hamelech of the king, Chur with lace, Karpas silk, the Techelis in light blue, Ochlus, and all these curtains were hanging, the Chavle boots with linen thread, Agom on a purple, Aglile Kesef on silver poles, Amudov and pillars of Sheish of Mudov, Sheish, I don't know, could be pearl, mitos of beds, I needed a lot of beds for what was going on there, mitos Zohav of gold, the Kesef and silver, Al Spitzpas on floors of Bahat of marble, or Sheish, different kind of marble, Vidar, Vesachars, 4 types of marble, and they were drinking and partying it up for 6 months. We're talking about a very, very low-class party, and unfortunately, the Jews were attended. And for Jews, they had kosher wine, kosher meat, kosher food, everything kosher. Achashverosh understood, to get the Jews in, you got to make it glatt kosher. The atmosphere was treif. The kosher, food was kosher. There used to be, in New York 30 years ago, a certain cafe downtown opened glatt kosher. And every simple Jews who didn't know better went to that place on Motzi Shabbat. Other nights of the week too, mostly Motzi Shabbat. Go-go dancers, belly dancers, Egyptian belly dancers. So their rabbis put a cherem on it. So now the Egyptian dancers still dance, but they were covered up. And the food was glatt kosher. The company that gave the hechsher, unfortunately, should be ashamed of itself. When you have kosher food and treif atmosphere, the worst things that the eyes shouldn't see, it is far worse to see that than to eat treif. Treif only poisons your stomach. That poisons your neshama. If you can't understand the difference, you better go back to kindergarten. So this party was like that. He said every Jew should have kosher wine, mavushal, not mavushal, everything with all the hechsherim, with the 5 different hechsherim. You ever buy products that have this hechsher, this hechsher, this hechsher, this hechsher, this hechsher? Why does sardines need 4 hechshers? Why does a bottle of milk need 3 hechshers? Why? To make everybody happy. Everybody gets something out of it. You understand what's going on? So, hechsher, that's very important. Oh, we're so makbid. What about the atmosphere going on? That doesn't bother you. That was this party. That was the reason God decreed they should be destroyed. They were assimilated and they ate kosher food. That doesn't mean much. They had to trade for lifestyle. Second reason God decided to destroy them because they bowed down to the idol of Achashverosh. Now, Achashverosh never said he was a god. He said he was a ruler. They showed respect. I know, but eventually, these people get so self-deluded they think they're God. So there was two reasons. So Mordechai saved the Jewish people by not bowing down to Haman. Haman got furious and couldn't wipe out Haman. Mordechai, personal vendetta for one man. That great system prime ministers, well, he was the prime minister, Achashverosh was the king. Can't kill one man, so he decided to kill the whole Jewish people. So all the Jews said, Mordechai, you're the worst man. You're worse than him. You're causing our death. Like they complained against Moshe. When Moshe went to Pharaoh, it got worse for the Jewish people. Dasan and Aviram said, you should be punished by God because since before you came, he gave us enough straw to make the bricks. Now he's not giving us straw, we have to make the bricks anyhow. So you, Moshe, are the worst Jew. Why did Moshe do that? Because God told him to. Why did Mordechai do that? He had Ruach HaKodesh. God wanted him to do that. Not bow down to Haman. Haman got furious. And he couldn't bow down to Haman because he knew by Nevuah that under Haman's shirt was a picture of an Avodah Zarah. So he wouldn't be bowing down to Avodah Zarah. He became stubborn, and Haman decided to kill the Jewish people. And Achashverosh took off his ring, gave it to Haman. He said, you handle the job. And he says, I'll give you 10,000 kikar silver. I'll handle it. I'll pay for the mercenaries. None of you don't have to, won't cost you nothing. So Achashverosh said, go ahead, take care of it. That's why we have Pasha Shkolim next week. Every Jew gives a chatzi shekel to save our life. And we give, we were told in the Midbar, thousands of years before there was ever a Haman on the world, to give chatzi shekel, because tzedakah tatzel mimoves. And we beat Haman's 10,000 shkolim. 10,000 shkolim, 10,000 kikar. 10,000 kikar is 250 pounds. And the Jews who gave the money in the Midbar was more than 10,000 kikar. So, that's why we have Pasha Shkolim before Purim. Because Haman, which is a Purim story, gave 10,000 kikar to Achashverosh to handle the job. It won't cost the country anything, he said. So we remember that by giving Chatzi Shekel Erev Purim. That means on Tanis Esther. But this year Tanis Esther is Thursday and Purim is Sunday. And you can't give it on Shabbos, you can't give it on Friday, so you give it on Thursday, the Chatzi Shekel for every male above 13. You don't have to give it for your little children. But once you start doing it, it's like an Eider, you have to continue. So look at Shulchan Aruch about the dinim of Chatzi Shekel. Okay, Rabbi said this is enough for this week. And next week we'll continue Megillas Esther. And that's a very big thing coming on. But I told you in the beginning, let's wait 3 weeks and see what happens on Purim, the 14th day of Adar, if that Ahmadinejad is still around and Gaddafi. The whole thing is collapsing. Yishmael is collapsing. Maybe this will be the year. Let's wait and see. Shalom.